Yeah.
Jason Nero put the record out.
Creator gang coming, creator king coming. Turning up the light and watch some boys start running. Let me tell you something, we ain't out here doing nothing. I can tell you scared, boy, niggas stop fronting. It was all in the plan, comprehension, understand. Breaking boys off like creator did the band. Cooler than the band, who you fooling, man? We be tearing shit up like we're taping and some bands. Conscious community, yeah, we in demand. They hunger for the truth, debate or the booth. Sourcing up with the proof, hey, you on the tooth. Catch me in the candy painted octagon coupe. Step in my boots while I'm knocking mines loose. You be the cobra, I be the mongoose. Plant base in my suit, meditate on my fruit. Red Star training, who let the gods loose?
Welcome to the Jehovih Chronicles with your host, Cosmon Cal.
That's right. Back like I left something. Miss your hostess with the mostest burning light toast is Cosmon Cal. Told you I'll be right back at it. Just to come on and finish this thing off. Interview with the devil. Part 3, man. If y'all ain't checked out part 1 and part 2, that's on you. You dig what I'm talking about? I suggest y'all sub, like, share, hit that thumbs up button, wipe your feet off, roll up something good, put some ice off in your cup, sit back. We gonna blast off. This is your naga, your nerve. Fresh off of that curve, jelly, jam, and preserve. Cosmon, man. Right back in it. I ain't gonna do too much talking. Let me get this off the screen real quick. Of course, gotta put up fair use. This is my copyright disclaimer, right? Using it for educational and scholarship purposes. Let's go.
I had no idea, Your Majesty, that people get into so much difficulty through uninvited expression of their opinions. But now that you have brought up the subject, I do remember writing the editor of a prominent magazine an uninvited letter of criticism, which cost me a fine position on his staff at a fat salary.
That is a perfect example. The proper place to begin self-discipline is right where you stand. The way to begin is by recognizing the truth, that there is nothing for good or evil throughout the myriads of universes except the power of natural law. There is no individual personality anywhere throughout the myriad of universes with the slightest power to influence a human being, save nature and human beings themselves. There is no human being now living. No human being has ever lived, and no human being ever will live with the right or the power to deprive another human being of the inborn privilege of free and independent thought. That privilege is the only one over which any human being can have absolute control. No adult human being ever loses the right to freedom of thought, but most humans lose the benefits of this privilege either by neglect or because it has been taken away from them by their parents or religious instructors before the age of understanding. These are self-evident truths, no less important because they are being called to your attention by the devil than they would be if brought to your attention by my opposition.
But what are people going to lean upon in the hour of emergency when they know not where nor to whom to appeal?
Let them lean upon the only dependable power available to any human being.
And what is that?
Themselves. The power of their own thoughts. The only power they can control and may rely upon. The only power which cannot be perverted, colored, modified, or falsified by their dishonest fellow human beings.
All you say seems logical, but why must I come to the devil to discover such profound truths? Let's get back to the 7 principles. You've already disclosed enough information to show clearly that the secret of how to break the power of hypnotic rhythm is wrapped in the 7 principles. You have shown, too, that the most important of these principles is self-discipline. Now, go ahead and describe the other 5 principles you have not yet mentioned and indicate what part they play in giving one self-discipline.
First, let me summarize that part of my confession we have already covered. I have frankly told you that my 2 most effective devices for mastering human beings are the habit of drifting and the law of hypnotic rhythm. I have shown you that drifting is not a natural law, but a man-made habit which leads to man's submission to the law of hypnotic rhythm. The 7 principles are the media by which man may break the hold of hypnotic rhythm and take possession again of his own mind. You see, therefore, the 7 principles are the 7 steps which lead victims of hypnotic rhythm out of the self-made prisons in which they are bound.
The 7 principles are the master key that unlocks the door to spiritual, mental, and economic self-determination. Is that true?
Yes, that's another way of stating the truth.
Is failure ever a benefit to man?
Yes. Indeed, learning from adversity is the 3rd of the 7 principles. But few people know that every adversity brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. Still fewer people know the difference between temporary defeat and failure. If this knowledge were generally known, I would be deprived of one of my strongest weapons of control over human beings.
But I understood you to say that failure is one of your greatest allies. I got the impression from your confession that failure causes people to lose ambition and quit trying, and then you take them over without opposition on their part.
That is just the point. I take them over after they quit trying. If they knew the difference between temporary defeat and failure, they would not quit when they meet with opposition from life. If they knew that every form of defeat and all failures bring with them the seed of unborn opportunity, they would keep on fighting and win. Success usually is but one short step beyond the point where one quits fighting.
Is that all one might learn from adversity, defeat, and failure?
No, that is the least of what one might learn. I hate to tell you this, but failure often serves as a blessing in disguise because it breaks the grip of hypnotic rhythm and frees the mind for a fresh start.
Now we are getting somewhere. So, you have confessed at long last that even nature's law of hypnotic rhythm can be and often is annulled by nature herself. Is that correct?
No, that is not stating the matter accurately. Nature never reverses any of her natural laws. Nature does not take away a human being's freedom of thought through hypnotic rhythm. The individual gives up his freedom by abuse of this law. If a man jumped from a tree and was killed by the sudden impact of his body with the earth through the law of gravity, you wouldn't say nature murdered him, would you? You would say the man neglected to relate himself properly to the law of gravity.
I am beginning to see. The law of hypnotic rhythm is capable of both negative and positive application. It may drag one down to slavery through loss of the privilege of freedom of thought, or it may help one rise to great heights of achievement through the free use of thought, depending on how the individual relates himself to the law. Is that correct?
Now you have it right.
But what about failure? One does not fail intentionally with purpose aforethought. No one encourages temporary defeat. These are circumstances over which the individual often has no control whatsoever. How, then, can it be said that nature does not take away one's freedom of thought when failure destroys ambition, willpower, and the self-confidence essential to make a fresh start?
Failure is a man-made circumstance. It is never real until it has been accepted by man as permanent. Stating it another way, failure is a state of mind. Therefore, it is something an individual can control until he neglects to exercise this privilege. Nature does not force people to fail. But nature does impose her law of hypnotic rhythm upon all minds, and through this law gives permanency to the thoughts which dominate those minds. In other words, failure thoughts are taken over by the law of hypnotic rhythm and made permanent if the individual accepts any circumstances as being permanent failure. That same law just as readily takes over and makes permanent thoughts of success.
What part, then, does failure play in helping an individual break the grip of hypnotic rhythm after that law has been fastened upon his mind?
Listen,
Failure brings a climax in which one has the privilege of clearing his mind of fear and making a new start in another direction. Failure proves conclusively that something is wrong with one's aims or the plans by which the object of these aims is sought. Failure is the dead end of the habit path one has been following, and when it is reached, it forces one to leave that path and take up another, thereby creating a new rhythm. But failure does more than this. It gives an individual an opportunity to test himself, wherein he may learn how much willpower he possesses. Failure also forces people to learn many truths they would never discover without it. Failure often leads an individual to an understanding of the power of self-discipline, without which no one could turn back after having once been the victim of hypnotic rhythm. Study the lives of all people who achieve outstanding success in any calling, and observe with profit that their success is usually in exact ratio to their experiences of defeat before succeeding.
Is this all you have to say of the advantages of failure?
No, I have barely begun. If you want the real significance of adversity, failure, defeat, and all other experiences which break up a human being's habits and force him to form new habits, watch nature at her work. Nature uses illness to break the physical rhythm of the body when the cells and organs become improperly related. She uses economic depressions to break the rhythm of mass thought when great numbers of people become improperly related, through business, social, and political activities. And she uses failure to break the rhythm of negative thought when an individual becomes improperly related to himself in his own mind. Observe carefully, and you will see that everywhere in nature there is always at work a natural law, which gives eternal change to all matter, all energy, and to the power of thought. The only permanent thing in the universe is change.
dang.
Eternal, inexorable change, through which every atom of matter and every unit of energy has the opportunity to properly relate itself to all other units of matter and energy. And every human being has the opportunity and the privilege of properly relating himself to all other human beings, no matter how many mistakes he makes, or how many times or in what ways he may be defeated. When mass failure overtakes a nation, such as the 1929 World Business Depression, the circumstance is in perfect harmony with nature's plan to break up man's habits and give out fresh opportunities.
What you are saying intrigues me. Am I to understand that hypnotic rhythm has something to do with the way people relate themselves to one another?
That abstract, elusive thing called character is nothing but a manifestation.
No.
Circumstances in perfect harmony with nature's plan to beat it. When mass failure overtakes a nation, such as the 1929 World Business Depression, the circumstance is in perfect harmony with nature's plan to break up man's habits and give out fresh opportunities.
Thought it was interesting that they brought up the 1929 Depression, or what we call the beginning of the Great Depression. Because since we're talking about hypnotic rhythm or vibratory rate, what we know as vortex, right? And we understand its repetitive nature, aka the 3, the 6, the 9, right? People say it, but they don't really know what they're talking about, right? They talk about Tesla. If you're talking about Tesla and you're talking about 369 and you're not breaking it down how he breaking it down, you don't really know what you're talking about. If you're using the 369 any other way, right, you don't really know what you're talking about. If you're not first talking vortex, you don't really know what you're talking about, bro. No offense. But it is just this idea, like in 1929, if, you know, through the timetables of prophecy, they teach that certain times repeat each other, right? So let's just say this last 100 years has been repeating the 100 years before it. You dig what I'm talking about? For instance, 1919, you go into a pandemic, basically a pandemic. In 2019, 2020, you go into a pandemic. Same things is happening. We're seeing a great change and a collapse that they're heading to in 1929. We see the changeover to a digital dollar and a teeter-tottering of the society right now. You know what I mean? Even people is telling to back out of the system and let it collapse all on its own. So it seems like we're in a prophetic loop, right? That if you are able to read the light in the dark, you absolutely know what's going on. And if you were the creator and you did make this world as hard as it is, you would still want to give your sons and daughters who are able to perceive the light the ability to help themselves and help others before calamities, catastrophes, and things would happen. They would be able to predict them. One of the greatest things about all religion that we find out is prophecy. That Bible, so-called full of it. So is the Mahabharata, Ramayana, the Upanishads, Shinto, Taoism, Confucianism. You know what I mean? All the basically the major religions hinge on inspired revelation and also prophecy. But one of the great hindrances, and it is a foundational problem of religion, is that it tells you to trust prophecy, but doesn't teach you how to prophesy. Anybody in the chat, anybody listening, man, thank everybody for coming out. You dig what I'm saying? We're gonna get right back into this, but if you have a verse in any religion in the world, anyone, a verse or two, let alone if you got a book that teaches you how to prophesy, the who, what, when, where, and why of prophecy. And then, unlike a waspy reveals you to you that there's two ways to prophesy. Did you know that? The question is, why didn't you know that? If this is supposed to be the way messages are being getting out, or did you think it was just some spooky mess and it just happened to certain people at certain times, and maybe it happened, maybe it won't? And did you think that this was lick your finger scholarship? Maybe it's not your fault in the end anyway. Maybe somebody was supposed to teach you, right? But he was usurping a title that he didn't earn, so he didn't know to teach you. What if he didn't tell you how he created the heavens in the earth, right? Genesis 1:1, God, Elohim, created multiple, by the way, which is a plural, right? Plural words in English, in Hebrew, turn to plural words in English. I don't know how this one does it. I've never seen that before. It's the only time it ever happens. Salute to all the fam out there. You dig what I'm talking about? What if your God didn't tell you how he created it on purpose? What if he didn't tell you the who, what, when, where, how, and why, the axiomatic nature of the creation, so you could later point at it and say, this is this, and we prove it by this word right here, right here. What if your God didn't tell you how creation was created because he wasn't there? Is that your fault? No. See, that's why we taking the fear away with a waspy, right? That's his fault. But understand, now that you know what you're bound to here, you're bound to in the heavens. I'm letting you know it's a false God. He didn't tell you on purpose. This is why there's no ages in the Bible. This is why there's no ages, right? Even using the Vedic text, they give you the yuga system. You dig what I'm talking about? But it's so fantastical and far-fetched and incomplete. You could use the Kali Yuga. I wouldn't lie to you. I could line the Kali Yuga up right with OSP, except you're short because you don't know the secret. You don't know the secret, right? And really, it ain't no secret. It's just mathematics. But it don't matter if you got all the middle part right and you're starting in the wrong place. See what I'm saying? Guess what? You can do all the math in the middle, would be correct, and you're still going to end up in the wrong place. Prophecy, not guesswork, y'all. It's just something to think about.
Unities.
So my thing is, if there was a pandemic in 1920 and one in 2020, if there was a financial collapse in 1929, what's liable to happen in 2029? I'm just saying. I'm not asking you to believe, but one time, woo-wee, two times, wait a minute. You punched me one time. Your hand swung over here one time. By that second time, I know you're not playing. I'm just trying to be out the way. Either way, this is the purpose of prophecy, so you can get out the way. Man, telling you.
What you are saying intrigues me. Am I to understand that hypnotic rhythm has something to do with the way people relate themselves to one another?
That abstract, elusive thing called character is nothing but a manifestation of the law of hypnotic rhythm. Therefore, when speaking of one's character, it would be proper to say his thought habits have been crystallized into a positive or a negative personality. Through hypnotic rhythm, one is good or bad because of the knitting together of his thoughts and deeds through hypnotic rhythm. One is bound by poverty or blessed with abundance because his
Okay. I see how they playing now. I see how they playing now. Yeah. I see how they playing now. It's okay, y'all. Just kick you straight off screen, huh? That's how they do it now. Just take your live down, right? It's okay. It's okay. One monkey don't stop no show, man. Let me drop this link off in here, man. Link, well, actually, I think link is in the top of the chat. Anybody want to come in real quick? I see the sister had an interesting thing to say here. She says, in the book of Daniel, the Most High humbled King Nebuchadnezzar, making him a beast for 7 years, and always wonder why now I know. Want to hear something interesting? There's a guy out here who says he is Daniel. And he says he was in the court of Nebuchadnezzar. All right? He say he is the literal biblical Daniel, who we know as, right? And who they twisted around as Zoroaster. You ain't gotta believe. Hold on, let me show you. I know y'all saying, what you talking about, Cosmon? Oh, here go Cosmon. Here you go. What are you talking about, cuz? Let me go look in some of this. I'm gonna turn on a little bit of music real quick, just a little something to keep the groove going, right? Just something, little something to keep the groove going. I'm gonna pull this source real quick, and we're gonna get right to it. Now I want to share this with y'all real quick. You dig what I'm talking about? Since they think they're gonna block the light, I shine way too bright. You dig what I'm talking about? The sister asked a question, said, we wanna see what some outside information, and then what he's saying is firsthand information, and what the actual humbling of Nebuchadnezzar was and was about. You know what I mean? Where they turned him into a beast. They said he ate grass and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Like a real beast. Did he literally turn into a beast? Let's check this source off real quick. Let me show y'all this. All right. It's a book I brought out a while ago. Shout out Selah Shalom. This is called Antiquity Unveiled. Make sure everybody can see that. Antiquity Unveiled. Let me see if I can blow it up just a little bit. Boom. 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 All right, I'll do it like that. Now, it says in the book of Daniel, the Most High humbled King Nebuchadnezzar, making him a beast for 7 years, And I always wondered why. Now I know. Dig this. Let's add some more information onto what you know, right? Just more information. Let me get this off the screen. Peep this. All right, this is Antiquity Unveiled. Let's go. This is Antiquity Unveiled. Ancient voices from the spirit realm disclose the most startling revelations, proving Christianity to be of heathen origin. Now, right now, look at some of the names. I'm going to blow some of this up. I want y'all to look at some of the names of the spirits that come back to speak. Apollonius, Apollonius, a Tyana, who they say is the Nazarene, the Jesus of the Christians. Damas, right? Misunderstood in the Bible as Timothy. Anybody who know Damas know that's Apollonius' homeboy. They try to make Apollonius is the real Paul, the real Jesus, and the real John. Those are his stories. Crazy, crazy, crazy. But I want to get down here to near the end. These are all the people who came back, gave their testimonies. But look right here at the bottom. Look right here. Zoroaster. Right? Watch what Zoroaster has to say. And then watch who he tells you he is in history. This is amazing what he's about to say. Let me see if I can blow it up just a little bit. All right. Now, what page is that? Hold on, let me go back. What page is that? That's 656. That's what it says. So it says on 565. Excuse me. All right. Dig what this stuff say here. Right. Do I want to start here? Well, first of all, we know this is Zoroaster coming back. Right. So I want to get down to where okay. Here we go. Listen to what he says. This is amazing, especially when dealing with Nebuchadnezzar. Now, mind you, he was the vizier, right? The Balaam, or the magic man, the Magi for Nebuchadnezzar. Also, Darius after him, and Cyrus. He lived a long time. Watch this. Watch this. This is Zoroaster talking. I'm not asking you to believe this, but do your homework on what he's saying. And if he's lying, come back and show me. Because when I did the homework and then listen to what he had to say, because he about to tie some stuff up for you that's crazy. Look, dig this. He says, now he talking through a medium to this man, right, who was writing this book, right? This is Zoroaster speaking, right? He says, I salute you, sir. You have heard. Hold on, wait a minute. Let me make sure I can be. That my mic is open. Okay. He says, I salute you, sir. You have heard from me from time to time, and once, I think, I communicated directly with you. I am Zarathustra, or Zerusht, or Zoroaster, the Daniel of the Jewish scriptures. Now, for those who, why he says Zarathustra, he's obviously not Zarathustra. This man is from the time of Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar and Darius and Cyrus. That's 500s BC, 600 to 500s BC. Zarathustra, right, existed 7053 BC. So 6,500 years before Zoroaster existed, the true Zarathustra existed. But why did he say, I am Zarathustra then? Because these are the names you know Zoroaster under. I am the Zarathustra, the Zerdusht, the Zoroaster, and the Daniel of the Jewish scriptures. So this is how knowledge is very much so power and key, because you would actually think that he's saying, I'm Zarathustra. No, I am called Zarathustra. There was a real man. I am called Zerusht. By the Greeks, I am called Zoroaster. But I am the Daniel also of the Jewish scriptures. So when you looking back for Zoroaster in time, you would look for Zarathustra. So this is why every time you see Zarathustra, when you pull it up in Google search, you're always going to get Zoroaster. Every time you pull up Zoroaster, you're going to get Zarathustra. But he's also Zerusht and also the Daniel of the Jewish scriptures. Listen, I lived in the days of Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar, Darius, Hydaspes, and Cyrus. Let's look at this. Watch this. Let's look at this. Let's put it on a timeline. Dig this. Right? Nebuchadnezzar was a warrior king, often described as the greatest military leader of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. He ruled from 605 to 562 BCE, or before the Common Era, in the area around the Tigris-Euphrates Basin, or what we would today know as Iraq. His leadership saw numerous military successes and the construction of building works, such as the famous Ishtar Gate, right? But let's look at Nebuchadnezzar, and let's look at his line, right? His successor, right? Now look at the time of Darius. When did Darius rule? To 522. So this man was around more than 80 years. Where's Cyrus? Hold on, let's look around and see When was Cyrus ruling? Right? Right in the middle. Right in the middle. So from the 600s all the way down to the time of Darius, through the time of Cyrus the Great, all the way down in the 486. Let me show you. Let me go back. Let me go back. Darius would have been his son would have been who we know as Artaxerxes. Xerxes the Great. During this time, what's happening in Greece? Anybody know? What's happening right now at this time? October 486. October 486 BC. Anybody know what's going on between Greece or Rome? Anybody know what's going on between Athens and Sparta and the Persian Empire? You ever heard of the movie 300? The Battle of Thermopylae? He's saying he was an advisor to Nebuchadnezzar all the way down to Darius. This man lived over 100 years. Let's go back and see what he say, though. Let's go back and see what he say. Let's zoom in some more. Let's zoom in. He said, I lived in the days of Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar, Darius, Hydaspes, and Cyrus. It is very important that I communicate with you at this time, and I must ask this of you. In making up or closing your book, I ask that you give this communication as the last. Now, think about it. Zoroaster been in the heavens since ain't no telling. He been in there since the 400s BC. He died in the 400s. Right? He would have had to write some of the books of Tanakh. Right? So it would have been before it was compiled or during the time it was being compiled by Ezra. When did Ezra start? 496. Darius times runs through what? 486. I've been has skills. Watch this. He said, I ask that you hold this communication last as by arrangement of the spirits with whom I am acting. I am too close or complete. I am to close or complete these communications. Listen, the Jewish book of Daniel was stolen bodily from the books written by myself or through me concerning Ormazd and Mithra. Is this why Jebus is shown with the crown, the light and the halo of Mithra, because it's really Ormazdian. Ooh, the Jewish book of Daniel was stolen bodily. That means from the rooter to the tutor. From the rooter to the tutor. It was stolen from the books written by myself or through me concerning Ormazd and Mithra. They saying that the Persian Mithridaic religion birthed the book of Daniel and is hidden in so-called Christian and Jewish religion. It is Ormazd Mithra worship. Ooh-wee. And sir, I ask you, from all you have known of me during the time these communications have been given to you, he says, whether these communications have been given to you, whether I have not proven my honesty and acted with the sole object of benefiting humanity, I cordially and emphatically, this is the man speaking, answered in the affirmative. Oh, sir, how I have desired to come to you, but conditions were necessary that I could not control, and which could only be obtained by a power outside of and beyond myself. Ooh-wee. That power, listen, that power has been exerted, and the conditions have been brought about that enable me to come to you. I knew the importance, what does he say? I knew the importance of availing myself to this opportunity. I might not have been able to give you this communication for 500 years to come if I did not do so now. From this, you will understand the importance of it. It will be difficult to find evidence of the truth of what I am about to communicate to you in any books now extant, or that means existent, whether biographical dictionaries, encyclopedias, or other works. And I will tell you why this is so. Listen, this is deep. This get deep. Anything that was opposed to the Christian religion can no longer be found in ancient writings. I'll say it again. Anything that was opposed to the Christian religion can no longer be found in ancient writings because of the care with which all such evidence has been destroyed by Christian priestly zealots. Only such evidence as could be construed to favor Christianity, or which did not in the least oppose it, has been allowed to escape similar destruction. I want you to give this point particular attention, for by doing so, you will reach the truth. The Hebrew book called the Book of Daniel contains the account of the actual earthly experiences of Zoroaster at the court of Nebuchadnezzar. Let that sink in. The Book of Daniel, if you know, this shouldn't even be a stretch, that the Book of Daniel was during the Persian Medo captivity, and what goes into the Babylonian captivity, right? This is Nebuchadnezzar, right? So we know Daniel was talking about a time pre Second Temple. We know during the Second Temple and pre-Second Temple, the people were in Babylon. Who ran Babylon during this time? Nebuchadnezzar and the Persia-Medes. Watch this. Anything found in a let me see. He said, we know this. The Hebrew book called the Book of Daniel contains the account of the actual earthly experiences of Zoroaster. That's new. But at the time of Nebuchadnezzar, so we know this, we're talking about in Babylon, and the other kings who I have already named. All that is mentioned as having transpired in the book of Daniel occurred through myself as a medium and has no relation whatever to a Jewish Daniel, but solely relates to Zarathustra of the Persians. Let it sink in. I want to commence with that part of the book where mention is made of Nebuchadnezzar eating grass. Right? This is why I came to it. Let's get down to it. I want to commence with that part of the book where mention is made of Nebuchadnezzar eating grass and explain what was meant by it. It meant nothing more than that after years of a life of sensuality, that king was sick struck. What? Wait a minute. That king was struck with a sense of enormity of his personal conduct. His conscience kicked in, and he was brought to a realization of this through me. So let's go back to explain the Nebuchadnezzar eating grass part in Daniel and explain what is meant by it. It meant nothing more than that after years of a life of sensuality, that king was struck with a sense of enormity of his personal conduct. He looked back and seen all the things and destruction and life he took. And you know what I mean? He probably damn near threw up on himself at the opulence and style and decadence of life that he was living in, and his conscience kicked on. Right? And what happened? He was brought to a realization of this through me. Not that I desire to exalt myself by mentioning this fact, for my sole object in doing so is the good of humanity. I was known as Aranamar at the court of Cyrus. Look it up. I was known as Aranamar. I want you to understand that at the court of that king, I was in the position of a philosopher who, having reasoned upon the law of cause and effect, would stand at any court or in any other condition of life. In the reign of Darius Hydaspes, I went through the ordeal of being cast into a lion's den. Oh. Look what he said. I'm just saying, take it at face value. He took Bible at face value. Now this nigga coming back 1,000 years later trying to clean up what he messed up. But I was a medium and was well, first of all, let's go back. In the reign of Darius Hydaspes, I went through the ordeal of being cast into a lion's den. But I was a medium and was attended by a power that protected me from physical injury. Sound familiar? but it was through what may be regarded as superior mesmeric and psychological power. That's what he thought. I received, he say, look, because he could clear it up. I received this from spirits. And through that power, I was enabled to calm the fury of the lions. Didn't the lions teach this to the shepherd kings? Nobody ever asked, how did the shepherd kings and all these people go into these mountains and collect up all these lions, tigers, and bears without dying? It was I, Zarathustra, who read the handwriting on the wall. This is Daniel 5:5. It was I, Zarathustra, not Daniel, who read the handwriting on the wall in the days of Belshazzar. And I did this through the power of spirits. I assure you that I was the original Daniel, and the Jews appropriated my works. There was a religious teaching promulgated in the age in which I lived on earth, which was attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, that a child should be born of a virgin. What? This was a common what? Hold on, let's go back up. This was a common belief at that time. I was only a chip floating on the stream of time. Back of me and behind me lies what is known as the what? The phallic religion. No diddy. That religion coming straight out of Egypt. That religion taught that forces of nature, the natures, express themselves in an individual unit, such as Asar, Aset, Set, Heru. And back of and beyond that was the philosophical religion taught by Hermes Trismegistus. This philosophical religion was derived from the planetary and stellar systems. Is this where you get your invention of your 12 tribes? Because there are 12 stellar signs or cosmological signs, really 13, but is this how they wrote themselves into your Israelitish history? Because remember who did this? The Jews did this, not the Israelites. Why would an Israelite need a book to teach him how to be an Israelite? Explain that. Remember, the law is only for the lawless. The Israelites already had the oral doctrine since the time of Moses. What would we need anything else for? Well, as a matter of fact, we was doing that so good. The Israelites was doing that so good. Creator took pity upon them. The God took pity upon them in the book and got them up out of Egypt. So why would he then turn around and give them a book to teach these right-acting Israelites how to now be Israelites? It wasn't for you. The book was never for you. You can't prove who you are by the book. Everybody in the book did opposite of what the real Israelites, Essenes, and Nazarenes did. They didn't even speak the same language. The Jews spoke Hebrew. Jeebus and them spoke Aramaic. No Israelite ever spoke Hebrew. Not one, ever. Moses didn't speak it. Jeebus didn't speak it. No. Abraham didn't speak it. The philosophical religion was derived from the planetary and stellar systems and embodied the principle known to you moderns as the law of cause and effect. And look, it's still going back of and beyond that was the Hindu Chaldaic religion. What? Can you say Brahma and Abram? What is this religion? Which took its rise at the base of the Himalayas. What is this? This is now corrupted as the Hindu Brahmin religion, but this religion that took its rise at the base of the Himalayas mountains is your very first Vedas. There was also a very ancient what? Phoenician religion. Right? I ain't want to keep getting into it, man. You dig what I'm talking about? If y'all don't want me to keep reading, but that's, you dig what I'm talking about? That's some of the stuff being brought out in this. See, like what he say? Ezra would have spoke Assyrian Aramaic. I'm not sure. I would say no. I would say no, because we don't see these Jewish people in the far west in Israel, Gaza, speaking Assyrian, right? They speak in Assyrian Aramaic over that way, but not in Babylon. They speak in this mixed up the Semiramis language, the language of Semiramis, which is Paleo-Indo-European, or what they call Semite. All right, this is where they get this from. And I believe this would have been the Paleo-Hebrew, would have been the language of the Babylonians. This is where the Jews get it. The real Israelites would have been speaking this. Ezra would have been speaking this Hebrew from the Babylonians, because he was born in Babylon. Ezra was born in Babylon. Yeah. Ezra was born during the rule of Nebuchadnezzar. Yeah. He knew Daniel and them. The Hebrew is a Babylonian tongue. It's the tongue that Ezra and them had to learn after Daniel and them told you that they smashed their religion. They smashed everything. They lost everything. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. You saying okay? Yeah. Oh, all right. Okay, I see how you wrote that. I read it wrong. You dig what I'm talking about? But there's some deep stuff right here, right? I'll read down a little bit, and we'll get back to it, man. The latter religions had their chief idea, right? The religions of heat and cold and their effects in nature upon men and crops on which they depended for sustenance. And here I want you to observe what I say particularly. The great Western continent. So what are we talking about? By you called America, was progressing at one time side by side with the Eastern continent. Let that sink in. Now listen. Listen, this get heavy right here. Look what happens. Dig this. And a man named Bochica taught all the laws of cause and effect in Bolivia and Peru long before Manco Capac and his wife appeared there. Right? Now remember, he's telling you about a time during the time of Nebuchadnezzar, 600s, 500, 400s BC. Right? And I want you to say at the close of your book that all the sciences and all the knowledge of antiquity are concentrated in 2 books. Listen, I want to read this again. I'm going to go back. He's setting you up. He's telling you something. That the great Western continent, by you called America, was progressing at one time side by side with the Eastern continent. And a man named Bochica. They always confuse him also with Quetzalcoatl, but he predates Quetzalcoatl by about 150 years. Taught all the laws of cause and effect in Bolivia and Peru long before Manco Capac and his wife appeared there. And I want you to say at the close of your book that all the sciences and all the knowledge of antiquity are concentrated in 2 books. Listen up, I'm about to blow your wig. The nature of one of them, called what? The book of Revelation, has been explained to you by who? I'm going to just let that sit right there for a minute. Who we got to explain by? Who wrote the book of Revelations? Didn't they tell you John wrote it on an island where he had a revelation from Jesus? Why is Zoroaster telling you that was written by Apollonius of Tyana? Cosmon already told you, your fake Jesus, your fake Paul's a literary invention. There was a person called Saul, right? But the life that extends, that does all this stuff, is not going to get the gospels and all that. No, he did none of that. Apollonius of Tyana did that. And they usurped and stole his story. And yes, he was a Nazarene. The nature of one of them, the book of Revelations, has been explained to you by Apollonius of Tyana. Y'all got to go back up and read the book. Y'all go and get this book. I'll drop the link for it in the chat, as a matter of fact. Drop the link for this in the chat. Hold on, let me copy that, y'all. Copy. Now paste. Boop. There you go. You dig what I'm talking about? We don't hold no information around here. Man, we ain't no rest haven. Now, It has been explained to you by Apollonius of Tyana. Now, if you go back up and read the story, Apollonius of Tyana tell you when, where, how, why of a nigga who wrote a book, like you would know. You wouldn't get your story mixed up 3 different times. You have to tell the story of Paul 3 different times, 3 different ways, right? If you was actually there. Telling y'all, it's time of revelation, man. This is Cosmine era, man. All the things that was hidden is being brought to light. All the things that was light is going to be made heavenly and last forever. It's going to turn ethereal. So what's true is going to be true. Everything else is going to fall by the wayside. Right? What up? What's going on, y'all? What's up, sir? You good, my guy? Hold on one second. All right, real quick. Yeah, let me get back to this. Let me show y'all this. Right. And the other, right? So all the sciences and all the knowledges of antiquity are concentrated in 2 books. The book of Revelation, written by and explained by Apollonius of Tyana, and the other is the book of Daniel. Those 2 books open up to you the secrets of antiquity. By this, I mean when properly understood and interpreted, but not when literally read. How do you start to understand the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation to reveal the ancient sciences? Didn't I tell y'all how you gonna get this new light if you ain't completed the old light? You ain't even did the old laws. How you gonna get some new shit? The reason you wasn't able to complete them is because you was looking at this literally. Those 2 books open up to you the secrets of antiquity. By this, I mean when properly understood and interpreted, but not when read literally. In the latter part of the book, containing these communications, I want this train of information set forth and the fact impressed upon the reader that we spirits are not working for applause, but for the good of humanity. I want it further understood that the spirits I have brought to you have been compelled by my power to tell the truth. Now, he made Constantine tell the truth, Apollonius. He done brought anybody who had anything to do with your Bible. He brought them back, and through his power, he made them tell the truth. So, but what was blocking him from coming back to tell the truth was a power even greater than him. So what's going on up there? What's really going on? And then he coming back to tell you about Christianity so you can look for yourself and see that it's something higher than all this. That's the dope part. He said, we don't do this shit for y'all niggas to be up here seal clapping. That's a good lesson. You don't need your applause. Most of y'all don't get it or understand anyway. So y'all saying this is deep really don't mean nothing to somebody who 2,000-3,000 years into the heavens. What do you need your applause for? Truth don't need no crutch. We also desire that it shall be stated in the close of this book that we are not seeking to gain believers in any doctrine. All we asked of them is that they will examine in order to know the truth. The book of Daniel was typical of the learning and knowledge of the pre-Christian ages, and its meaning is similar to the book of Apollonius, known to you as the book of Revelations. We are both inspired mediums, and our works overlap each other. Dope. Now, I'm going to get back cracking with this. You dig what I'm talking about? I'm going to get back cracking with this because one monkey don't stop no show. Let's roll.
Who succeed in business do so entirely because of the way they relate themselves to their associates and to others outside of the business. Professional men who succeed do so largely because of the manner in which they relate themselves to their clients. It is much more important for the lawyer to know people and to know the laws of nature than it is to know the law. And the doctor is a failure before he starts unless he knows how to relate himself to his patients so as to establish their faith in him. Marriage succeeds or fails entirely because of the manner in which the participants relate themselves to one another. Proper relationship in marriage begins with a proper motive for the marriage. Most marriages do not bring happiness because the contracting parties neither understand nor attempt to understand the law of hypnotic rhythm, through the operation of which every word they speak, every act in which they engage, and every motive by which they are inspired to deal with each other is picked up and woven into a web that entangles them in controversial misery, or gives to them the wings of freedom through which they soar above all forms of unhappiness. Every newly made acquaintanceship between people ripens into friendship and then into spiritual harmony, sometimes called love, or plants a germ of suspicion and doubt which evolves and grows into open rebellion, according to the way in which the participants in the acquaintanceship relate themselves to one another. Hypnotic rhythm picks up the dominating motives, aims, purposes, and feelings of the contacting minds, and weaves these into some degree of faith or fear, love or hatred. After the pattern has taken definite shape, as it does with time, it is forced upon the contacting minds and made a part thereof. In this silent way does nature make permanent the dominating factors of every human relationship. In every human relationship, the evil motives and the evil deeds of the contacting individuals are coordinated and consolidated into definite form and subtly woven into that all-important human trait known as character. In the same manner, the motives and the deeds of good are consolidated and forced upon the individual. You see, therefore, it is not only one's deeds, but also one's very thoughts which determine the nature of all human relationships.
You are leading into pretty deep water. Let's keep it near the shore, where I can follow you without fear of getting beyond a safe depth. Go ahead and tell me how this subject of human relationships actually works in the current affairs of a problem-filled world such as we have today.
That is a happy thought. But let me make sure you understand the principles I am telling about, before I try to show you how to apply them in the affairs of life. I wish to be sure you understand that the law of hypnotic rhythm is something that no one can control, influence, or evade. But everyone can relate himself to this law so as to benefit by its inexorable operation. Harmonious relationship with the law consists entirely of the individual changing his habits so they represent the circumstances and the things the individual wants and is willing to accept. No one can change the law of hypnotic rhythm any more than one can change the law of gravity, but everyone can change himself. Remember, therefore, in all the discussion of this subject that all human relationships are made and maintained by the habits of the individuals related. The law of hypnotic rhythm plays only the part of solidifying the factors which constitute human relationships, but it does not create those factors. Before we go further with the discussion of human relationships, I want you to get a clear understanding of the subconscious mind. The term subconscious mind represents a hypothetical physical organ which has no actual existence. The mind of man consists of universal energy, some call it infinite intelligence, which the individual receives, appropriates, and organizes in definite thought forms through the network of intricate physical apparatus known as a brain. These thought forms are replicas of various stimuli which reach the brain through the 5 commonly known physical senses, and the 6th sense, which is not so well known. When any form of stimuli reaches the brain and takes the definite shape of thought, it is classified and stored away in a group of the brain cells known as the memory group. All thoughts of a similar nature are stored together, so that the bringing forth of one leads to easy contact with all its associates. The system is very similar to the modern office filing cabinet, and it is operated in a similar manner. The thought impressions with which one mixes the greatest amount of emotion or feeling are the dominating factors of the brain because they are always near the surface, at the top of the filing system, so to speak, where they spring into action voluntarily the moment an individual neglects to exercise self-discipline. These emotion-laden thoughts are so powerful, they often cause an individual to rush into action and indulge in deeds which have not been submitted to or approved by his reasoning faculty. These emotional outbursts usually destroy harmony in all human relationships. The brain often brings together combinations of emotional feelings so powerful they completely set aside the control of the reasoning faculty. On all such occasions, human relationships are apt to be lacking in harmony. Through the operation of the 6th sense, the brain of a human being may contact the filing cabinet of other brains and inspect at will whatever thought impressions are on file there. The condition under which one person may contact and inspect the filing cabinet of another person's brain is generally known as harmony. But you may better understand what is meant if I say brains attuned to the same rate of thought vibrations can easily and quickly exercise the privilege of entering and inspecting each other's filing cabinets of thoughts. In addition to receiving organized thoughts from the filing cabinets of other brains through the 6th sense, one can, through this same as infinite intelligence. All information reaching one's brain through the 6th sense comes from sources not easily isolated or traced. Therefore, this sort of information is generally believed to come from one's subconscious mind. The 6th sense is the organ of the brain through which one receives all information, all knowledge, all thought impressions which do not come through one or more of the 5 physical senses. Now that you understand how the mind operates, you will more easily understand how and why people come to grief through improper human relationships. You will also understand how human relationship may be made to yield riches in their highest form, riches in material, mental, and spiritual estates. Moreover, you will understand there can never be happiness except through understanding and application of the right principles of human relationships. You will understand, too, that no individual is an entity unto himself, that completeness of mind can be attained only by harmony of purpose and deed between 2 or more minds. You will understand why every human being should, of his own choice, become his brother's keeper in fact, as well as in theory.
What you say may be true, but I still insist that you have me beyond safe depths of thought. Let us get back nearer to the shore, where I can wade in familiar water. We shall go out into the deeper water after we learn to swim well. We started out to discuss the subject of how to profit by adversity, but it seems we have drifted somewhat afield from that subject.
We have detoured, but we have not drifted. The devil never drifts. The detour was necessary in order that you might be prepared to understand the most important part of this entire interview. We are now ready to get back to the discussion of the subject of adversity. Inasmuch as most adversities grow out of improper relationships between people, it seems important to understand how people may become properly related. Naturally, the question arises as to what is a proper relationship between people. The answer is that the proper relationship is one that brings to all connected with it, or affected by it, some form of benefit.
What then is an improper relationship?
Any relationship between people which damages anyone, or brings any form of misery or unhappiness to any of the individuals.
How can improper relationships be corrected?
By change of mind of the person causing the improper relationship, or by changing the persons to the relationship. Some minds harmonize naturally, while others just as naturally clash. Successful human relationships, to endure as such, must be formed of minds that naturally harmonize, quite aside from the question of having common interests as a means of bringing them into harmony. When you speak of business leaders who succeed because they know how to pick men, you might more correctly say they succeed because they know how to associate minds which harmonize naturally. Knowing how to pick people successfully for any definite purpose in life is based upon ability to recognize the types of people whose minds naturally harmonize.
Stay focused on adversity, if you will. If there are possible benefits to be found through adversity, name some of them.
Adversity relieves people of vanity and egotism. It discourages selfishness by proving that no one can succeed without the cooperation of others. Adversity forces an individual to test his mental, physical, and spiritual strength. It thus brings him face to face with his weaknesses and gives him the opportunity to bridge them. Adversity forces one to seek ways and means to definite ends by meditation and introspective thought. This often leads to the discovery and use of the sixth sense through which one may communicate with infinite intelligence. Adversity forces one to recognize the need for intelligence not available except from sources outside of one's own mind. Adversity breaks old habits of thought and gives one an opportunity to form new habits. Therefore, it may serve to break the hold of hypnotic rhythm and change its operation from negative to positive ends.
What is the greatest benefit one may receive through adversity?
The greatest benefit of adversity is that it may, and generally does, force one to change one's thought habits, thus breaking and redirecting the force of hypnotic rhythm.
In other words, failure always is a blessing when it forces one to acquire knowledge or to build habits that lead to the achievement of one's major purpose in life. Is that correct?
Yes, and something more. Failure is a blessing when it forces one to depend less upon material forces and more upon spiritual forces. Many human beings discover their other selves, the forces which operate through the power of thought, only after some catastrophe deprives them of the full and free use of their physical bodies. When a man can no longer use his hands and his feet, he usually begins to use his brain. Thus he puts himself in the way of discovering the power of his own mind.
What benefits may be derived from the loss of material things, money, for example?
The loss of material things may teach many needed lessons, none greater, however, than the truth that man has control over nothing and has no assurance of the permanent use of anything except his own power of thought.
I wonder if this is not the greatest benefit available through adversity.
No. The greatest potential benefit of any circumstance which causes one to make a fresh start is that it provides an opportunity to break the grip of hypnotic rhythm and set up a new set of thought habits. New habits offer the only way out for people who fail. Most people who escape from the negative to the positive operation of the law of hypnotic rhythm do so only because of some form of adversity which forces them to change their thought habits.
Isn't adversity apt to break one's self-reliance and cause one to give up hope?
It has that effect on those whose willpower is weak through long-established habits of drifting. It has the opposite effect on those who have not been weakened through drifting. The non-drifter meets with temporary defeat and failure, but his reaction to all forms of adversity is positive. He fights instead of giving up, and usually wins. Life gives no one immunity against adversity, but life gives to everyone the power of positive thought, which is sufficient to master all circumstances of adversity and convert them into benefits. The individual is left with the privilege of using or neglecting to use his prerogative right to think his way through all adversities. Every individual is forced either to use his thought power for the attainment of definite positive ends, or by neglect or design, use this power for the attainment of negative ends. There can be no compromise, no refusal to use the mind. The law of hypnotic rhythm forces every individual to give some degree of use, either negative or positive, to his mind. But it does not influence the individual as to which use he will make of his mind.
Am I to understand from what you say that every adversity is a blessing?
No, I did not say that. I said there is the seed of an equivalent advantage in every adversity. I did not say there was the full-blown flower of advantage, just the seed. Usually the seed consists of some form of knowledge, some idea or plan, or some opportunity which would not have been available except through the change of thought habits forced by the adversity.
Are those all the benefits available to human beings through failure?
No. Failure is used by nature as a common language in which she chastises people when they neglect to adapt themselves to her laws. For example, the World War was man-made and destructive. Nature planted in the circumstances of the war the seed of an equivalent reprimand in the form of a world depression. The depression was inevitable and inescapable. It followed the war as naturally as day follows night, and by the operation of the selfsame law, the law of hypnotic rhythm.
Am I to understand that the law of hypnotic rhythm is the same as that which Ralph Waldo Emerson called the law of compensation?
The law of hypnotic rhythm is the law of compensation. It is the power with which nature balances negative and positive forces throughout the universes, in all forms of energy, in all forms of matter, and in all human relationships.
Does the law of hypnotic rhythm operate quickly in all instances? For example, does this law immediately bless one with the benefits of positive application of thoughts, or curse one immediately with the results of negative thoughts?
The law operates definitely, but not always swiftly. Both the benefits and the penalties incurred through the law by individuals may be harvested by others, either before or after their death. Observe how this law works by forcing upon one generation of people the effects of both the sins and the virtues of preceding generations. In the operation of all of nature's laws, the fourth dimension, time, is an inexorable factor. The length of time consumed by nature in the relation of effects to their causes depends in every instance on the circumstances at hand. Nature grows a pumpkin in 3 months. A good-sized oak tree requires 100 years. She converts a hen's egg into a chicken in 4 weeks, but she requires 9 months to convert the egg of a human being into an individual.
I now have a better understanding of the potentialities of adversity and failure. You may go ahead now with your description of the next of the 7 principles. What is your next principle?
The next principle is environmental influence.
Go ahead and describe the working principle of environmental influences as a determining factor in human destinies.
Environment consists of all the mental, spiritual, and physical forces which affect and influence human beings.
What connection, if any, is there between environmental influences and hypnotic rhythm?
Hypnotic rhythm solidifies and makes permanent the thought habits of human beings. Thought habits are stimulated by environmental influences. In other words, the material on which thoughts are fed comes from one's environment. Thought habits are made permanent by hypnotic rhythm.
What is the most important part of one's environment, the part which determines, more than all others, whether an individual makes positive or negative use of his mind?
The most important part of one's environment is that created by his association with others. All people absorb and take over, either consciously or unconsciously, the thought habits of those with whom they associate closely.
Do you mean by this that constant association with a person whose thought habits are negative influences one to form negative thought habits?
Yes. The law of hypnotic rhythm forces every human being to form thought habits which harmonize with the dominating influences of his environment, particularly that part of his environment created by his association with other minds.
Then it is important that one select one's close associates with great care.
Yes. One's intimate associates should be chosen with as much care as one chooses the food with which he feeds his body, with the object always of associating with people whose dominating thoughts are positive, friendly, and harmonious.
Which class of associates has the greatest influence upon one?
One's partner in marriage and in the home, and one's associates in his occupation. After that come close friends and acquaintances. Casual acquaintances and strangers have but little influence on one.
Why does one's partner in marriage have so great an influence upon one's mind?
Because the relationship of marriage brings people under the influence of spiritual forces of such weight that they become dominating forces of the mind.
How may environmental influences be used to break the grip of hypnotic rhythm?
All influences which establish thought habits are given permanency through the law of hypnotic rhythm. One may change the influences of his environment, so that the dominating influences are either positive or negative, and the law of hypnotic rhythm will make them permanent unless they are changed through one's habits of thought.
That is actually a dope statement. People Taz Vortex say, it's funny how the Bible says Satan was the perfect angel, but never tells us who inspired him to fall, aka drift. Now we know. Dang, that's dope. Facts. Facts.
Stating this truth in another way, one may submit himself to any environmental influence desired, whether positive or negative, and the law of hypnotic rhythm will make the influence permanent when it assumes the magnitude of thought habit. Is that the way the law works?
That is correct. Be careful of all forces which inspire thought. Those are the forces which constitute environment and determine the nature of one's earthly destiny.
What class of people controls their environmental influences?
The non-drifters. All who are victims of the habit of drifting forfeit their power to choose their own environment. They become the victims of every negative influence of their environment.
Is there no way out for the drifter? Is there no method by which he may submit himself to the influence of a positive environment?
Yes, there is a way out for drifters. They can stop drifting, take possession of their own minds, and choose an environment which inspires positive thought. This they may accomplish through definiteness of purpose.
Is that all there is to the act of eliminating the habit of drifting? Is the habit only a state of mind?
Drifting is nothing but a negative state of mind, a state of mind conspicuous by its emptiness of purpose.
What effective procedure may one follow in establishing an environment most helpful in developing and maintaining positive thought habits?
The most effective of all environments is that which may be created by a friendly alliance of a group of people who will obligate themselves to assist one another in achieving the object of some definite purpose. This sort of an alliance is known as a mastermind. Through its operation, one may associate himself with carefully chosen individuals, each of whom brings to the alliance some knowledge, experience, education, plan, or idea suited to his needs in carrying out the object of his definite purpose. The most successful leaders in all walks of life avail themselves of this sort of made-to-order environmental influence. Outstanding achievement is impossible without the friendly cooperation of others. Stating the truth in another way.
Sister asks, well, what are the origin of forces? Sound in motion.
Successful people must control their environment, thereby ensuring themselves against the influence of a negative environment.
What of people whose duty to relatives makes it impossible for them to avoid the influence of a negative environment?
No human being owes another any degree of duty which robs him of his privilege of building his thought habits in a positive environment. On the other hand, every human being is duty-bound to himself to remove from his environment every influence which even remotely tends to develop negative thought habits.
Isn't this a cold-blooded philosophy?
Only the strong survive. No one can be strong without removing himself from all influences which develop negative thought habits. Negative thought habits result in the loss of the privilege of self-determination, no matter what or who may cause those habits. Positive thought habits may be controlled by the individual and may serve his aims and purposes. Negative thought habits control the individual and deprive him of the privilege of self-determination.
I deduce from all you have said that those who control the environmental influences out of which their thought habits are built are masters of their earthly destinies, and that all others are mastered by earthly destinies. Is that stating the matter correctly?
Perfectly stated.
What establishes one's thought habits?
All habits are established because of inherent or acquired desires, or motives. That is, habits are begun as the result of some form of definite desire.
What takes place in the physical brain while one is forming thought habits?
Desires are organized impulses of energy, called thoughts. Desires that are mixed with emotional feeling magnetize the brain cells in which they are stored and prepare those cells to be taken over and directed by the law of hypnotic rhythm. When any thought appears in the brain or is created there, and is mixed with keen emotional feeling of desire, the law of hypnotic rhythm begins at once to translate it into its physical counterpart. Dominating thoughts, which are acted upon first by the law of hypnotic rhythm, are those with which are mixed the strongest desires and the most intense feelings. Thought habits are established by the repetition of the same thoughts.
What are the most impelling basic motives or desires which inspire thought action?
The 10 most common motives, those which inspire most of one's physical action, are these: the desire for sex expression and love, the desire for physical food, the desire for spiritual, mental, and physical self-expression, the desire for perpetuation of life after death, the desire for power over others, the desire for material wealth, the desire for knowledge, the desire to imitate others, the desire to excel others, the 7 basic fears. These are the dominating motives which inspire the majority of all human endeavors.
What about the negative desires, such as greed, envy, avarice, jealousy, anger? Are these not expressed more often than any of the positive desires?
All negative desires are nothing but frustrations of positive desires. They are inspired by some form of defeat, failure, or neglect by human beings to adapt themselves to nature's laws in a positive way.
That's a new slant on the subject of negative thoughts. If I correctly understand what you have said, all negative thoughts are inspired by one's neglect or failure to adapt oneself harmoniously to nature's laws. Is that correct?
That is exactly correct. Nature will not tolerate idleness or vacuums of any sort. All space must be and is filled with something. Everything in existence, of both a physical and a spiritual nature, must be and is constantly in motion. The human brain is no exception. It was created to receive, organize, specialize, and express the power of thought. When the individual does not use the brain for the expression of positive, creative thoughts, nature fills the vacuum by forcing the brain to act upon negative thoughts. There can be no idleness in the brain. Understand this principle, and you will come into a new and important understanding of the part environmental influences take in the lives of human beings. You will better understand also how the law of hypnotic rhythm operates, it being the law which keeps everything and everyone constantly moving through some form of expression of either negative or positive principles. Nature is not interested in morals as such. She is not interested in right.
I want y'all to understand that when he says hypnotic, what does he call it? Hold on, let me go back. Hypnotic rhythm, right? He's talking about vortex, but he's telling you how it reacts on corpor, right? You see how far we are really ahead of the game? Huh? This type of information, you can go back before the beginning. And I'm just saying there is no, in a sense, beginning, but the beginning of your local area, your sun, your planet, your moon. You dig what I'm saying? Because there ain't a time there was nothing. Ain't no nothing. It's always something. Right? We end up finding out that something is always created.
Right and wrong, she is not interested in justice and injustice. She is interested only in forcing everything to express action according to its nature.
My bad. My bad. The one thing I just wanted you to lock in with this was you can exchange vortex or vortexia for hypnotic rhythm. You dig what I'm talking about? That rhythm he's talking about. That expression of all things. That's vortex. Right? You got to take it out of the spooky and make it more give yourself the ability to more make it real and objective. You see what I'm saying? Let's go.
What is an enlightening interpretation of nature's ways? To whom may I turn for corroboration of your claims?
To men of science. to the philosophers, to all accurate thinkers. Lastly, to the physical manifestations of nature herself. Nature has no such thing as dead matter. Every atom of matter is constantly in a state of motion. All energy is constantly in motion. There are no dead voids anywhere. Time and space are literally manifestations of motion of such swiftness that it cannot be measured by human beings. Ocean. There are no dead voids anywhere. Time and
What'd he
space are
say?
literally manifestations of motion
Didn't I
of
just
such
say this?
constantly in a state of motion. Lastly, to the physical manifestations of nature herself. Nature has no such thing as dead matter. To all act.
That is an enlightening interpretation of nature's ways. To whom may I turn for corroboration of your claims?
To men of science, to the philosophers, to all accurate thinkers. Lastly, to the physical manifestations of nature herself. Nature has no such thing as dead matter. Every atom of matter is constantly in a state of motion. All energy.
Huh? All things are in motion. None, like they say in Owaspy, none stand still.
Is constantly in motion. There are no dead voids anywhere. Time and space are literally manifestations of motion of such swiftness that it cannot be measured by human beings.
Alas, one is forced to the conclusion from what you say that the sources of dependable knowledge are shockingly limited.
Swiftness that it cannot be measured by human beings. He is constantly in motion. There are no dead voids. Nature has no such thing as dead matter. Every atom of matter is constantly in a state of motion. All energy is constantly in motion. There are no dead voids anywhere. Time and space are literally manifestations of motion of such swiftness that it cannot be measured by human beings.
And the all spoke and motion was, is, and ever shall be. Telling you.
Alas, one is forced to the conclusion from what you say that the sources of dependable knowledge are shockingly limited.
The developed sources of knowledge are limited. Every normal adult human brain is a potential gateway to all the knowledge there is throughout the universes. Every normal adult brain has within its mechanism the possibility of direct communication with infinite intelligence, wherein
Listen,
exists all the knowledge that is or can ever be.
they just corroborated what the creator said. What the whole purpose of Owaspy? Anybody remember the purpose of Owaspy? I'll give you a 50 real nigga points if you can tell me the purpose of Owaspy. What's the number one purpose of Owaspy? It's basically brought here to do three things, right? What's the number one thing Owaspy was put here for? Huh? The number one thing it was put here for was so you could hear the voice of the creator. Ain't that what it say? To hear the voice of the creator and to see his heavens in full consciousness. And to 3, know of a surety where you're going to go after you die. That's what Owaspy is here for. So the devil, the devil just co-signed Jaja. Is y'all listening? I'm listening. Watch this. And then peep the game he dropped. Peep the game he dropped. This nigga heavy, bro.
Limited.
The developed sources of knowledge are limited.
Oh, wait a minute.
Every normal adult human brain is a potential gateway to all the knowledge there is throughout the universes. Every normal adult brain has within its mechanism the possibility of direct communication with infinite intelligence, wherein exists all the knowledge that is or can ever be.
Your
just
statement
told you
leads me to believe
you
that
can
human
talk to
beings may
Creator.
become all they have attributed to what they call God. Is that what you mean?
Through the law of evolution, the human brain is being perfected to communicate at will with infinite intelligence. The perfection will come through organized development of the brain, through its adaptation to nature's laws. Time is the factor which will bring perfection.
What causes cycles of recurring events such as epidemics of disease, business depressions, wars, and...
Watch this. Watch this. Listen, if he say anything, I'ma just let it play. I'ma just let it play. I ain't gonna say nothing.
crime waves?
All such epidemics in which great numbers of people are similarly affected are caused by the law of hypnotic rhythm, through which nature consolidates thoughts of a similar nature and causes those thoughts to be expressed through mass action.
Then the Great Depression was put into motion because great numbers of people were influenced to release thoughts of fear. Is that correct?
Perfectly. Millions of people were endeavoring to get something for nothing through stock gambling. When they suddenly discovered they had gotten nothing for something, they became frightened, rushed to their banks to draw out their balances, and the panic was on. Through mass thought of millions of minds, all thinking in terms of fear of poverty, the depression was prolonged over a period of years.
From what you say, I deduce that nature consolidates the dominating thoughts of people and expresses these thoughts through some form of mass action, such as business depressions, business booms, and so on. Is that correct?
You have the right idea.
Let us now take up the next of the 7 principles. Go ahead and describe it.
The next principle is time, the 4th dimension.
What relationship is there between time and the operation of the law of hypnotic rhythm?
Time is the law of hypnotic rhythm. The lapse of time required to give action.
Is that correct? Validates the
of fear of poverty. The rush to their banks to people were endeavoring to get something for
depression, alluring events such as epidemics of disease, business depressions, wars, and crime waves.
All such epidemics in which great numbers of people are similarly affected are caused by the law of hypnotic rhythm.
Our calls, we can hypnotic rhythm, we can replace with vortexia. We know that's a fact. What does it say? The bands of the arms of the vortex condense, pushing, not pull as in gravity, pushing as centrifugal and centripetal from its extremity towards the center. It is by hypnotic rhythm or vortexia. Nobody ever looks up. They're looking for disease to come out of the ground. They never look up.
Rhythm, through which nature consolidates thoughts of a similar nature and causes those thoughts to be expressed through mass action.
Then the Great Depression was put into motion because great numbers of people were influenced to release thoughts of fear. Is that correct?
Perfectly. Millions of people were endeavoring to get something for nothing through stock gambling. When they suddenly discovered they had gotten nothing for something, they became frightened, rushed to their banks to draw out their balances, and the panic was on. Through mass thought of millions of minds, all thinking in terms of fear of poverty, the depression was prolonged over a period of years.
Listen.
From what you say, I deduce that nature consolidates the dominating thoughts of people and expresses these thoughts through some form of mass action, such as business depressions, business booms, and so on. Is that correct?
You have the right idea.
Let us now take up the next of the 7 principles. Go ahead and describe it.
The next principle is time, the 4th dimension.
What relationship is there between time and the operation of the law of hypnotic rhythm?
Time is the law of hypnotic rhythm. The lapse of time required to give permanency to thought habits depends upon the object and the nature of the thoughts.
But I understood you to say that the only enduring thing in nature is change. If that is true, then time is constantly changing, rearranging, and recombining all things, including one's thought habits. How then could the law of hypnotic rhythm give permanency to one's thought habits?
Time divides all thought habits into 2 classes, negative thoughts and positive thoughts. One's individual thoughts are, of course, constantly changing and being recombined to suit the individual's desires. But thoughts do not change from negative to positive or vice versa, except through voluntary effort on the part of the individual. Time penalizes the individual for all negative thoughts and rewards him for all positive thoughts, according to the nature and purpose of the thoughts. If one's dominating thoughts are negative, time penalizes the individual by building in his mind the habit of negative thinking, and then proceeds to solidify this habit into permanency every second of its existence. Positive thoughts are likewise woven by time into permanent habits. The term permanency, of course, refers to the natural life of the individual. In the strict sense of the term, nothing is permanent. Time converts thought habits into what might be called permanency during the life of the individual.
Now I have a better understanding of how time works. What other characteristics has time in connection with the earthly destiny of human beings?
Time is nature's seasoning influence through which human experience may be ripened into wisdom.
What?
People are not born with wisdom, but they are born with the capacity to think, and they may, through the lapse of time,
that was some,
think their way into
hold on,
wisdom.
that was some OG game.
People
Wait
are
a
not
minute.
In
What?
connection with the earth.
Called permanency during the life of the individual.
What did you say?
Now I have a better understanding of how time works. What other characteristics has time in connection with the earthly destiny of human beings?
Time is nature's seasoning influence through which human experience may be ripened into wisdom. People are not born with wisdom, but they are born with the capacity to think, and they may, through the lapse of time, think their way into wisdom.
Do youths ever possess wisdom?
Only in very elementary matters. Wisdom comes only through the lapse of time. It cannot be inherited, and it cannot be imparted from one person to another except through the lapse of time.
Does the lapse of time force an individual to acquire wisdom?
No. Wisdom comes only to non-drifters who form positive thought habits as a dominating force in their lives. Drifters and those whose dominating thoughts are negative never acquire wisdom except of a very elementary nature.
From what
Yes,
you
it
say,
is.
I infer that time is the friend of the person who trains his mind to follow positive thought habits and the enemy of the person who drifts into negative thought habits. Is that correct?
That is precisely true. All people can be classified as drifters and non-drifters. Drifters are always at the mercy of the non-drifters, and time makes this relationship permanent.
Do you mean that if I drift along through life without definite aim or purpose, the non-drifter may become my master, and time only serves to give the non-drifter a stronger and more permanent grip upon me?
That is stating the truth exactly.
What is wisdom?
Wisdom is the ability to relate yourself to nature's laws so as to make them serve you, and the ability to relate yourself to other people so as to gain their harmonious, willing cooperation in helping you to make life yield whatever you demand of it.
Then accumulated knowledge is not.
Whoa. Real OG gang. Y'all better listen up. Y'all better listen up. Y'all listening? Real OG gang coming from the devil. Dig this.
Truth exactly.
What is wisdom?
He asked him what is wisdom. Watch this.
Wisdom is the ability to relate yourself to nature's laws so as to make them serve you.
Who? Hold on. What?
That is stating the truth exactly.
What is wisdom?
Wisdom is the ability to relate yourself to nature's laws so as to make them serve you, and the ability to relate yourself to other people so as to gain their harmonious, willing cooperation in helping you to make life yield whatever you demand of it. Make them serve
What is
you,
wisdom?
and the ability to relate yourself to other people so as to gain their harmonious. Wisdom is the ability to relate yourself to nature's laws so as to make them serve you, and the ability to relate yourself to other people so as to gain their harmonious, willing cooperation in helping you to make life yield whatever you demand of it, so as to
Grip upon me.
That is stating the truth exactly.
What is wisdom?
Wisdom is the ability to relate yourself to nature's laws so as to make them serve you, and the ability to relate yourself to other people so as to gain their harmonious, willing cooperation in helping you to make life yield whatever you demand of it.
Then accumulated knowledge is not wisdom.
Great heavens, no. If knowledge were wisdom, the achievements of science would not have been converted into implements of destruction.
What is needed to convert knowledge into wisdom?
Time, plus the desire for wisdom. Wisdom is never thrust upon one. It is acquired, if at all, by positive thinking, through voluntary effort.
Is it safe for all people to have knowledge?
It is never safe for anyone to have extensive knowledge without wisdom.
What is the age at which most people who acquire wisdom begin to acquire it?
The majority of people who acquire wisdom do so after they have passed the age of 40. Prior to that time, the majority of people are too busy gathering knowledge and organizing it into plans to spend any effort seeking wisdom.
What circumstance of life is most apt to lead one to acquire wisdom?
Adversity and failure. These are nature's universal languages through which she imparts wisdom to those who are ready to receive it.
Do adversity and failure always bring wisdom?
No, only to those who are ready for wisdom and have voluntarily sought it.
What determines one's readiness to receive wisdom?
Time and the nature of one's thought habits.
Is newly acquired knowledge the same as time-tested knowledge?
No. Knowledge tested through the lapse of time always is superior to that which has been newly acquired. Time gives to knowledge definiteness in both quality and quantity, and dependability. One can never be sure of knowledge that has not been tested.
What is dependable knowledge?
It is knowledge which harmonizes with natural law, which means that it is based upon positive thought.
Does time modify and alter the values of knowledge?
Yes, time modifies and alters all values. That which is accurate knowledge today may become null and void tomorrow because of time's rearrangement of facts.
What? 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 This is what Jaja say. Is the devil of faces? Let that sink in for a second. It ain't what they told us it was, is it? Time modifies and alters all values. That which is accurate knowledge today may become null and void tomorrow. That's damn near quoted from Owaski. So Owaski predate this book. By more than 60 years. So what's really going on? Is the devil a faithist?
And values. Time modifies all human relationships for better or for worse, depending upon the policy through which people relate themselves to one another. In the realm of thought, there is a time when it is proper to sow the seeds of thought, and there is a proper time to reap the harvest of those thoughts, the same as there is a time to sow and a time to reap from the soil of the earth. Without the proper measurement of time between the sowing and the reaping, nature modifies or withholds the rewards of the sowing.
Go ahead now and describe the last two of the 7 principles.
The next principle is harmony. Throughout nature, one may find evidences that all natural law moves in an orderly manner, through the law of harmony. Through the operation of this law, nature forces everything within the range of a given environment to become harmoniously related. Understand this truth, and you will catch a new and a more intriguing vision of the power of environment. You will understand why association with negative minds is fatal to those seeking self-determination.
Do you mean that nature voluntarily forces human beings to harmonize with the influences of their environment?
Yes, that is true. The law of hypnotic rhythm forces upon every living thing the dominating influences of the environment in which it exists.
If nature forces human beings to take on the nature of the environment in which they live, what means of escape are available to people who find themselves in an environment of poverty and failure, but desire to escape?
They must change their environment or remain poverty-stricken. Nature permits no one to escape the influences of his environment. However, nature, in her abundance of wisdom, has given to every normal human being the privilege of establishing his own mental, spiritual, and physical environment. But once he establishes it, he must become a part of it. This is the inexorable working of the law of harmony.
Wow.
In a business association, for example, who establishes the dominating influence that determines the rhythm of the environment?
Wait a
The
minute.
individual or individuals who
In a business association,
physical environment. But once he establishes it, he must abundance of wisdom, their environment, or remain poverty-stricken. Nature permits no one to escape the influences of his environment. However, nature, in her abundance of wisdom, has given to every normal human being the privilege of establishing his own mental, spiritual, and physical environment. But once he establishes it, he must become a part of it. This is
He right to call it she too. In its physical or corporeal sense, he's actually right to call it of its nature she. The unseen part would be the he, the actual force. Nobody sees energy, right? Just the results of it. This is dope. It said, nature, in her abundance of wisdom, has given to every normal living human being the privilege of establishing his own mental, spiritual, and physical environment. What are they talking about? But once he establishes it, he must become a part of it. This is the inexorable working of the law of harmony, or what they like, or what we know is frequency. What is he talking about? What are you establishing? Right? You're establishing your own mental, spiritual, and physical environment in your own natural environment, which may be poverty-stricken or whatever. Are we talking about imagination? Where else can you be in the middle of a ghetto, bullets flying around you, dope being sold, police trying to kill niggas, and you can be in your own mental, spiritual, and physical environment than in your imagination? Wouldn't this becoming part, or this leaning into this idea would be what we understand as dreaming or chasing a dream? Is this why those who chase their dreams usually catch them? Or they get damn near close to it? Because as a child, you could be in a terrible situation in your imagination takes you somewhere else. I tend to believe that we serve a fair and just creator, and that, let's say, like over in Israel today, they're over there bombing living places and residential places and hospitals. They doing all type of crazy stuff over there. They wiping the Palestinians out, right? Well, in that rubble of these buildings that they knocked down, there are babies, right? Newborn babies. I know this about my father. I know this, right? We always hear that, 1, 2, 3 days later, they're going through the rubble. They're picking out this rubble, you know what I mean? And they find a baby. And the baby don't seem to be moving, breathing, doing nothing. But as soon as they get the rubble up off the baby, pull the baby out, the baby instantly starts screaming. Ah! I know my father. I'm going to tell you what he does. Even in those messed up situations that y'all chose war, genocide, death, murder. You dig what I'm talking about? He still takes mercy on the children, and he doesn't stop the death, right? But at the moment before the child would die, or people caught up in these instances die, their ashar snatches their spirit. They don't feel nothing. This is how the babies be under tons and tons of rubble for 3 days. No water, no nothing. Soon as you dig it out, you dig what I'm talking about, touch the baby, it starts screaming. Put the spirit back. I know my father don't let children suffer. This is how I understand it. I feel bad about a lot of people who were molested as a children, because they go to this place, right, to hide and mask that pain. You dig what I'm talking about? It plays out in their elderly life as being homosexual, LGBTQ, thoughts of taking yourself up off the planet because you don't actually know. Somebody messed with that innocence, right? You weren't supposed to be hiding in that place. I'm telling you, the creator, even a lot, if you ask them people, they know it happened, but they don't remember. It's like it didn't hurt them, even though they know it hurt, right? It's like they were somewhere else. I'm telling you, creator, come and take the babies, even at them times, so they don't go through. I know my father. I know him. He don't let the baby suffer. I know he don't. And then he gives them a way to take themselves out of their physical environment, mental and spiritually. How? How? Only OSB is giving these understandings today. And the crazy part is, in the time of light, high etheric light, we are in an odic year. 2024 is an odic year. Aligns up with the 11-year sun cycle, right? Nothing to be afraid of. But in these times, this is a time of hardening off and exposing. Things that were in the dark are being drugged to the light. You must come to the light. Things that were true and are in the light already become everlasting. Anybody remember at the beginning of this year, out of nowhere, everybody in the world, Mally set it off right around Christmas, and he lit Paul on fire. And for about the first 2 months, everybody show for show lit Paul on fire. Tell me I'm making it up. Tell me I'm making it up. Where do these babies go when all this horrendous things are going on to them? I couldn't imagine being a father and something happened to my child. I couldn't. I wouldn't even. I'm gonna lose my faithism that day. I'm gonna lose my faithism that day. I'm glad I know. Look what he's saying, though. I'm asking, how? Where do the babies go? Do you believe your creator will let a baby suffer? And he got 4 fucking angels standing around him? At least one. All of us got at least 4. But they on shift, so it might be one guy. You think that stray bullet coming and the angel can't move the bullet? It is what it is. If you know he can't stop at the instant, baby doesn't even know it's dead. I know my father. Y'all better read the story of Pan. Y'all better read the story of Pan. He is in the troops for you. He said in that one event, 24.4 billion people died up on the planet. Let that sink in. That's 3 times the amount of the people that are on the planet today. Let that sink in. When they start to tell you, we don't have enough land and we can't make it. Oh my God, it's overpopulation. They're lying. It's so much land. It's so much land. They gonna get me on some flat earth stuff, talking about it's some land that y'all ain't even telling us about. It's so much land. He said it 3 times more people than are on the earth today died in one instance in a day. But what did he do? Not one of them suffered. Not even the good guys, not the bad guys. Nobody suffered. They didn't even know they died. But every single living person on the planet that was going to pass away, he sent 5 angels. 5. It's 24.4 billion times 5. That's 122. 122 billion angels. I can't even. You ever seen a stadium before? Like Michigan Stadium, hold little over 100,000, 112, 116,000, something like that. Bro, when that thing get to rocking, it's it's like a earthquake in there. It move, down to the man, 100,000 people singing that, bro. It boomed like, bro. I couldn't imagine what the voices of 122 billion angels sound like. Oof. Oof. I'm telling you, it's different. It's different. Make you contemplate on a different level, right? Definitely make you contemplate on a different level.
The inexorable working of the law of harmony.
In a business association, for example, who establishes the dominating influence that determines the rhythm of the environment?
The individual or individuals who think and act with definiteness of purpose.
Is it as simple as that?
Yes. Definiteness of purpose is the starting point from which an individual may establish his own environment.
I do not seem to follow your reasoning. The entire world is torn with warfare and business depressions and other forms of strife which represent about everything except harmony. Nature does not seem to be forcing people to harmonize with one another. How do you explain this inconsistency?
There is no inconsistency. The dominating influences of the world are, as you say, negative. Very well, nature is forcing human beings to harmonize with the dominating influences of the world environment. Manifestations of harmony may be either positive or negative. For example, a group of men in prison may, and they generally do, think and act in a negative manner. But nature sees to it that the dominating influence of the prison is impressed upon every individual in it. A group of poverty-stricken people in a tenement house may fight among themselves and apparently resist all forms of harmony. But nature forces each of them to become a part of the dominating influence of the house in which they live. Harmony, in the sense it is here used, means that nature relates everything throughout the universe as to every other thing of a similar nature. Negative influences are forced into association with one another, no matter where they may be. Positive influences are just as definitely forced into association with one another.
I'm beginning to see why successful business leaders are so careful in the choice of their business associates. Men who succeed in any calling usually establish their own environment by surrounding themselves with people who think and act in terms of success. Is that the idea?
That is the idea exactly. Observe, with profit, that the one thing all successful men insist upon is harmony among their business associates. Another trait of successful people is that they move with definiteness of purpose and insist upon their associates doing the same. Understand these two truths, and you understand the major difference between a Henry Ford and a day laborer.
Now, tell me about the last of the 7 principles.
The last principle is caution. Next to the habit of drifting, the most dangerous human trait is the lack of caution. People drift into all sorts of hazardous circumstances because they do not exercise caution by planning the moves they make. The drifter always moves without exercising caution. He acts first and thinks later, if at all. He does not choose his friends. He drifts along and allows people to attach themselves to him on their own terms. He does not choose an occupation. He drifts through school and is glad to get the first job that will give him food and clothing. He invites people to cheat him at trade by neglecting to inform himself of the rules of trade. He invites illness by neglecting to inform himself of the rules of sound health. He invites poverty by neglecting to protect himself against the environmental influences of the poverty-stricken. He invites failure at every step he takes by neglecting to exercise the caution to observe what causes people to fail. He invites fear in all its forms by his lack of caution in examining the causes of fear. He fails in marriage because he neglects to use caution in his choice of a mate, and he uses still less caution in his methods of relating himself to her after marriage. He loses his friends or converts them into enemies by his lack of caution in relating himself to them on the proper basis.
Are all people lacking in caution?
No, only those who have acquired the habit of drifting. The non-drifter always uses caution. He carefully thinks his plans through before he begins them. He makes allowances for the human frailties of his associates, and plans ahead to bridge them. If he sends a messenger on an important mission, he sends someone else to make sure the messenger does not neglect his mission. Then he checks on both of them to be sure his wishes have been fulfilled. He takes nothing for granted, where caution provides a way to ensure his success.
Isn't overcaution as detrimental as lack of caution?
There is no such thing as overcaution. What you call overcaution is an expression of fear. Fear and caution are two entirely different things.
Don't people mistake fear for overcaution?
Yes, that does sometimes happen. But the majority of people create for themselves far more disastrous hazards by total lack of the habit of caution than by overcaution.
In what way may caution be used most advantageously?
In the selection of one's associates, and in one's method of relating oneself to associates. The reason for this is obvious. One's associates constitute the most important part of one's environment, and environmental influences determine whether one forms the habit of drifting, or becomes a non-drifter. The person who exercises due caution in the choice of associates never allows himself to be closely associated with any person who does not bring to him, through the association, some definite mental, spiritual, or economic benefit.
Isn't that method of choosing associates selfish?
It is sensible and leads to self-determination. It is the desire of every normal person to find material success and happiness. Nothing contributes more to one's success and happiness than carefully chosen associates. Caution in the selection of associates becomes, therefore, the duty of every person who wishes to become happy and successful. The drifter allows his closest associates to attach themselves to him on their own terms. The non-drifter carefully selects his associates and allows no one to become closely associated with him unless that person contributes some form of helpful influence or bestows some definite benefit.
It never occurred to me that caution in the selection of friends had so definite a bearing on one's success or failure. Do all successful people exercise caution in the selection of all their associates, whether in business, social, or professional relationships?
Without the exercise of caution in the choice of all associates, no one may be certain of success in any calling. On the other hand, lack of exercise of caution brings almost certain defeat in whatever one undertakes.
Summary. 3 things connected with my interview with the devil interest me most. These 3 factors interest me because they have been the most important influences in my own life, a fact which any listener of my story can easily discern. The 3 important factors are the habit of drifting, the law of hypnotic rhythm through which all habits are made permanent, and the element of time. Here is a trio of forces which hold inviolate the destinies of all men. The 3 take on a new and more important meaning when they are grouped and studied as a combined force. It takes but little imagination and scarcely any understanding of natural laws for one to see that most of the difficulties in which people find themselves are of their own making. Moreover, difficulties seldom are the outgrowth of immediate circumstances. They are generally the climax of a series of circumstances which have been consolidated through the habit of drifting and with the aid of time. Samuel Insull did not lose his $4 billion industrial empire as the result of the Depression. He began losing it long before the Depression, when he became the victim of a group of women who flattered him into turning his talents from public utilities to grand opera. If ever a man in a high position in the financial world went down because of the power of drifting, hypnotic rhythm, and time, that man was Samuel Insull. I am writing from accurate knowledge of Mr. Insull and the cause of his troubles dating from the time that I served with him during the World War to the time of his ill-advised attempt to run away from himself. Henry Ford went through the same depression that swept Mr. Insull under, but Ford came out on top without a scratch. Do you want to know the reason? I'll tell you. Ford has the habit of not drifting on any subject. Time is Ford's friend, because he has formed the habit of using it in a positive, constructive manner, with the aid of thoughts of his own making, woven into plans of his own creation. Take any circumstance you wish, measure it with reference to its relationship to the habit of drifting, hypnotic rhythm, and time, and you may ascertain accurately the cause of all success and all failure. Franklin D. Roosevelt went into office with a bang during his first term. He had but one major purpose in mind, and that was very definite. It was to stop the stampede of fear and start people to thinking and talking in terms of business recovery instead of business depression. In carrying out that purpose, there was no drifting. The forces of the entire nation were consolidated and moved as one to help carry out the president's definite purpose. For the first time in the history of America, the newspapers of all political leanings, the churches of all denominations, the people of all races and colors, and the political organizations of all brands united themselves into one stupendous power for the sole purpose of helping the president restore faith and normal business relationships in the country. In a conference held between the president and a group of emergency advisors a few days after he went into office, I asked him what was his major problem. He replied, "It is not a question of majors and minors. We have but one problem, and that is to stop fear and supplant it with faith." Before the end of his first year in office, the president had stopped fear and supplanted it by faith, and the nation was slowly but surely on the way out of the jungle of depression. By the end of his first term, mark well the element of lapse of time, the president had so effectively consolidated the forces of American business and private life that he had an entire nation in back of him, ready, willing, and enthusiastically desirous of following his lead, no matter which way he went. These are facts well known to everyone who reads newspapers or listens to the radio. Then came another presidential election and the opportunity for the people to express their faith in their leader. They expressed it in a landslide without precedent in American politics, and the president went into office a second time with an almost unanimous electorate vote, with only 2 states meekly dissenting. Now observe how the wheel of life began to reverse itself and turn back in the other direction. The president changed his policy from definiteness of purpose to indefiniteness and drifting. His change of policy split the powerful labor group and turned more than half of it against him. It split the almost solid following he held in both houses of Congress, and more important than all this, it split the American people into pro- and anti-groups, with the result that about all the president had left of his original political assets was his $1 million smile and his ready handshake, obviously not enough to enable him to regain the power he once wielded in American life. Here, then, we have an excellent example of a man who skyrocketed to great power through definiteness of purpose and belly flop to the starting point by his habit of drifting. In both his rise and his fall can be seen clearly the operation of the principles of drifting and non-drifting reaching a climax through the power of hypnotic rhythm and time. All my life, the devil had a dramatic story to tell of his dealings with me. He saw me drift in and out of scores of business opportunities for which many would have given a king's ransom. He saw me drifting in my policy of relating myself to others, particularly in my lack of caution in business dealings. The circumstance which saved me from fatal control of the law of hypnotic rhythm was the definiteness of purpose with which, at long last, I dedicated my entire life to the organization of a philosophy of individual achievement. I drifted at one time or another.
We ain't gonna beat a dead horse. Anybody want to come on in, man, for a minute? Anybody want to come on in for a minute? I'll drop the link in the chat. 1 second. Drop the link in the chat. Anybody want to come in and kick it with your boy Cosmonian for a second, man? That was deep. That was deep. Oh, look. The daughter of the Great Spirit say, sheesh. Sheesh. You dig what I'm talking about? Shout out my sister Cherie. Man, this stuff it's heavy. You dig what I'm talking about? I understand why a lot of people don't rock with it. It's not that they don't want to. It's literally they can't. You know what I mean? They can't comprehend on these levels. It's got to be dumbed down. But what I say is start with Jehovah Chronicles #1. You dig what I'm saying? You could build yourself up how you want to build yourself up. You're going to make yourself the God you want to be. Right? Anybody coming in, man, shout out to everybody who came through. Anybody support the channel, thank y'all. You dig what I'm talking about? Ain't nobody hit up the cash every day, but I appreciate y'all for coming through, man. Hit that like button. You know what I mean? Shake it like a salt shaker. You dig what I'm talking about? Spin it like a vortex. Share it live. You dig what I'm talking about? Show your boys some love. Share it on your platforms. It's different. It's definitely not what you've been here. You dig what I'm saying? And with that being said, y'all, just want y'all to do one thing for me. First of all, know this.
Shout out to Cosmon Cal. Cosmon Cal, boy, I'm going to tell you something. He is a problem. He is a problem when it comes to these Hebrew Israelites. Y'all better stop playing. He is a problem. Cosmon Cal is a problem. Creator gang.
So I'm going to want y'all to breathe in and let that light in, because I'm Cosmon and I'm out.
And oh yeah, put that Super 7 in the air. Tell me how you feeling when you're feeling up there. When you in the sky breathing rarefied air. When you're breathing rarefied air, oh yeah. Put that Super 7 in the air. Tell me how you feeling when you feel it up there. When you in the sky breathing rarefied air. When you're breathing rarefied air,
just that Japheth, that Chow Mein, that Papabull, that Tao Mein, since sunset in the Ark of Wayne, my brain moving like Tao Sang. So as above, it's so below, that up and that down thing. This flow is atmospheric, I call that a ground game. See, water is knowledge, so if I'm teaching, you're learning. So how your God make a sun without vortexing current? See, the pattern is ponic, I'm reaching out for my people. Oh, watch me flow through your speakers, you feel the force of the ether. And when the force gets the equal, I'm taking off like an eagle. Police popped the pastor yesterday for pushing put equal. My DNA is Moshe. Mix that thing with higher water. My spirit rate is OTN. It's just a higher order. Got more light than Kavita. Rap a lot just like Tila. Went from sinner to saint. Shout out my big homie Sela. Got more torque than a sports car. Got more work than a door stop. And the 4 million I make, I'm giving the Dr. Umar. Oh yeah. Put that Super 7 in the air. Tell me how you feeling when you're feeling up there. When you in the sky breathing rarefied air. When you're breathing rarefied air, oh yeah. Put that Super 7 in the air. Tell me how you feeling when you feel it up there. When you in the sky breathing rarefied air. When you're breathing rarefied air, oh yeah. Super 7 in my rites and ceremonies. I'm married to Jehovah, holy matrimony. Confucius say, in the words of Caillou, before you hit the tomb, be a bridegroom. Only got one question for Miss Susan B. On how to last Ahuin is now a ennui. Blame my inspiration, I'm just thinking thoughts. But in the way of God's, we gon' keep it short. Why Jesus wanna kill me, Matthew 10:34. Just a couple questions that I'm needing to know. Oh, watch me flow, it's so potent. Set the vortex in motion. Super 7, I'm floating across the Aegean Ocean. Oh, you a Muslim now, so I guess you making salat. Well, I'm a Israelite, I'ma make him at the Shabbat. Got Moses on the bumper, super slap off in my spaceship photosphere. So I stay lit, peace and light to the faith is so yeah.
Put that Super 7 in the air. Tell me how you feeling when you're feeling up there. When you in the sky breathing rarefied air. When you're breathing rarefied air, oh yeah. Put that Super 7 in the air. Tell me how you feeling when you feel it up there. When you in the sky breathing rarefied air. When you're